Third down and 20.
We're just going to do a little would you rather with some of the top draft prospects. So let's start it off. Let's kick it off with the big debate that's been going on amongst the draft community, and that is Jamar Chase versus Devonta Smith. I think I'm going to take this one first because, initially coming into the season, I had Jamar Chase over Devonta Smith, but after this year, I have now switched that around, and I do have Devonta Smith over Jamar Chase. The reasons being, Devonta Smith, I really do feel is the best overall receiver. I think that he fits in a myriad of schemes at the next level. His footwork is really good. He has good hands. I don't think his hands are as good as Jamar Chase's, but they're plenty good enough. I think that just at the end of the day, if I'm taking a receiver at the very top of the draft, I want to take the guy that I think is the toughest to cover one-on-one, and I truly believe that is Devonta Smith. Take away the 50-50 balls and the other bull crap. I just think if you're going to try and cover Devonta Smith, you need two guys.
Yeah, I mean, I love both guys, but we talked about it before, but I'm more of a Jamar Chase guy. I still think he's the number one receiver on top of my board. Of course, he sat out this year, and I mean, it did hurt him because he's either going one or two. He's top 10 pick, but I think everybody kind of forgets and look at his stats 2019. I mean, a lot of Justin Jefferson wasn't even the best receiver on the team that year. It was Jamar Chase, and you're right. They're two different players, and you can play at the strengths in different ways. But I've always been more of a fan of, I like a good route runner and all, but I just can't get over how strong Jamar Chase's hands are. If it's one-on-one, if you throw it up to him, he's the kind of guy that's going to come down with the ball and make a play. I think he would do really good things on the outside for an NFL team and just be that explosive player that we saw in 2019. I mean, you look at Devonta Smith and Jamar Chase's those 2 years together, Devonta Smith's previous year. I mean, these two guys that put up absurd numbers. I mean, we're looking at two guys in this class that, it has that little Julio and AJ Green kind of feel to it. But I'm going to stick with Jamar Chase. I think both players are going to be tremendous at the next level, but I like Jamar Chase to maybe get, a couple more Pro Bowls under his belt.
Yeah, like you just said, I have both of these guys graded very highly, even though I have Smith over Chase. It's by a very slim margin. The thing is for me with Jamar Chase is that there are a couple things that I think I have working against him compared to consensus. The first is, and I'll just get this out of the way, I have never been a huge fan of 50-50 ball winners. I was very anti-N'Keal Harry. I was anti a lot of these top receivers that came out. Mike Williams is another one. That these are guys that kind of just made a lot of their money in college. Just you throw the ball up and they'll win against these college corners. And I think that does get mitigated. Now, with Chase, I do think that Chase is a much better receiver prospect than those guys I just mentioned. But the other thing, aside from just that initial bias against this sort of play style, is that I think that people are overhyping Jamar Chase's release and his overall separation. When I watched him on tape, he did do well against corners like Trayvon Diggs and Noah Igbenogany. It's just, I think that people are really overrating his ability to get off the line of scrimmage and press coverage quickly, and the amount of separation that he creates after the catch. I would like to go into a deep dive on this. We just don't have the time. But I think that where Chase did excel, though, in that scenario, in that press coverage, is that he was just more physical than these corners he was going against. And he wanted to be physical. He wasn't going to be a guy that necessarily, like Devonta Smith, on the other hand, was just going to beat you with quickness and with footwork. Jamar Chase did want to have that hand fighting, that physicality, that I'm pushing you, you're pushing me, and he would win that battle a lot of the time. So I think that he definitely, that sort of press mentality that a lot of teams tried to employ against him definitely helped him out. But I think when we get to the next level, that is a little bit more of a concern for me than for Devonta Smith, where I see Devonta Smith. I have clips of him just putting guys on the floor with his footwork off the line of scrimmage. I just think that for me that translates a little bit better in most schemes, and why I have him over. It does depend on which team, for example, because say for the Eagles, I think the Eagles that Jamar Chase would be a much better fit for Devonta Smith for what they need, right? If I'm the Eagles, I'm looking for someone to replace Alshon Jeffrey and to be possibly even better than Alshon Jeffrey, and that means I need someone who's really good in the red zone, and I need someone who has really strong hands. Well, that's Jamar Chase. So I would rather have Jamar Chase in that instance than Devonta Smith. But for something like the Dolphins, I would much rather have Devonta Smith, a guy that I think can work really well in this modern RPO style of offense, a guy that, with these timing routes can just get open for Tua. Tua, I really don't feel is that guy that wants to throw a ton of 50-50 balls. He wants to be able to throw it to a receiver in space with his accuracy. And that was what he got out of his teammate Devonta Smith at Bama.
Yeah, I will say about Jamar Chase, one last thing is, we really haven't seen him since the national championship when he was 19 years old, just putting up crazy numbers. And that could be, a bad thing, but also, it could be a good thing. The dude wasn't doing any, he hasn't played any game reps, so that's telling me, he's working on his negatives, you would think. Maybe he's gotten a little quicker. He's hitting a little agility ladder. He's working on his separation and trying to craft and become more of an all-around receiver. And he has that going for him. I'm pretty sure Devonta Smith is older. And,
he is.
He had the grooming at Bama. And, yeah, Jamar Chase is definitely, at the end of the day, a little more raw. But I just still think the ceiling is high for both of them. But I think the ceiling could be astronomically high for a guy like Jamar Chase.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate once again that these two receiver prospects, according to my grades, have better grades than any receiver to really come out within the past 5, 6, 7 years. Basically, like you said, since that Julio A.J. Green class. So I really don't think you can go wrong, and you're picking between two what I believe are going to be future All-Pros. But let's get into the next one. The next one we have is Justin Fields up against Zach Wilson. I'm going to take this one again. And, man, this one is close. I think I am going to lean Zach Wilson, though, just because of the traits, I think. Zach Wilson, to me, he has a lot of things that are really pointing in his direction in the modern game. One being he has a very quick release, which you've seen guys like Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, who have that just quick flick of the wrist, and you're able to get some distance on the football. He's very good at that, which I do think translates extremely well to the modern game. The other thing, and this is the thing I love the most about Zach Wilson, is that he's just really good at throwing people open and throwing the ball to defenders who have bad leverage, right? If he sees that his tight end is up against the linebacker in say, a Tampa 2, for example, where, for those of you who don't know, basically you almost have a linebacker playing as a pseudo-deep third. So you'll have a tight end, let's say he's just running a seam right down the middle towards the end zone. You'll have a linebacker covering him, and usually your tight end will be able to get better leverage, meaning that defender's back is going to be turned, whereas your tight end is going to be able to see the football. He does a very good job of putting the ball in a great place for his tight end to make a play, and in a place where that defender has to make a really awkward turn to try and defend the pass. You see that time and time and time again. Justin Fields, while I do think he has a better arm and is more accurate, especially down the field, I think that you just get a little bit more development out of Zach Wilson. I think you get a little bit more that you can work with. And there are some things that I do agree with consensus from Justin Fields that we've seen from his tape at Ohio State that I just don't really like getting through his progression. You see a lot of throws, especially this year, that were kind of mind-boggling at times. Maybe that's a COVID year having an impact. Me personally, I think we're starting to see the gap between these two guys really increase. I don't think the gap is all that big still. Both of these guys still have a lot of development to go. to be good at the next level. But if I have to choose just a blind system, I'm gonna have to take Zach Wilson right now.
Yeah, well, if you asked me this question in the beginning of the year before college football, I'd probably ask you who the hell is Zach Wilson. But, now after watching Zach Wilson, probably the most quarterback I've watched out of this class, because I just think he's intriguing, I'm going to go Zach Wilson too. I would not say I don't have it as close as you, because I still like Fields a lot, but I just see so much potential in Zach Wilson where, he started out, no one's improved their draft stock higher than Zach Wilson. This is a guy that struggled to be on the field from years past. I think his passer rating a year ago was like at a 70 or something like that. It was something
It's
like...
absurd. The guy had a 74% completion percentage.
Yeah, and now...
That's insane.
And now we're looking at him, we're talking about he's the number 2 quarterback off the board. You talked about his arm talent and his accuracy and just his overall athleticism really speaks out to me. I saw a video of him in one game. I can't remember who they're playing, but it literally just hurdles a linebacker. I don't know many quarterbacks, that are hurdling a guy that's, a couple inches and a few more pounds bigger than them. So I think you get a gamer, and I think he might know the game a little more than Justin Fields. Now, I'm not saying I don't doubt Justin Fields. I think Justin Fields didn't really do anything for me to improve his draft stock, and a bunch of these other guys have. And, Fields, like you saw in the Clemson game in the college football playoff, like beautiful deep ball, was hitting them on the run and really lit it up. But still, the decision making sometimes for me lacks there, and I would rather just get a guy like Zach Wilson and really try to bang this thing out.
Yeah, so if I'm looking at this from, say, like a dynasty fantasy football perspective, and I have to make this choice, I'm definitely waiting to see until after the draft, the landing spot, the coaching staff, because I think for both of these guys, development is going to be a huge part of their success. I think maybe more so for Fields than Wilson, but I think that if we're just looking at raw talent, it's Fields. But if we're looking at all things considered, it's Wilson. And that's why I have it really close. Justin Fields, like, I see just so much potential, and that's one of the reasons why I'm very hesitant to just say, oh, Zach Wilson, easy. Because when I'm looking at a quarterback to take in the draft, if I'm a GM, I'm not looking to take a guy that's a finished product or who's already more developed necessarily. I'm looking at it for a guy that I think, come a year or two down the road is just going to be the better player. Or even, from now until we get to the start of the season next year is just going to be the better player, right? And I think that easily could be Justin Fields. It's just there are a lot more flaws that I have with Justin Fields right now than I have with Zach Wilson. And it's always tough to get a gauge of these guys without being able to talk to them at all and really not interact with them at all. We're looking at all things from an outsider's perspective. So all things considered, I'll take Zach Wilson. The next one, this is an interesting one. Kyle Pitts or any defensive player in the draft?
Oh, man. You want me to start this one?
Yeah, you can start this one.
I'm easily taking Kyle Pitts. I think, besides, like, you see that's hard because I also think Michael Parsons is just a surefire, pick, too. Like, just... best defensive player in the draft, but I can't just get over when I watch a Florida team play, and you don't even have to know football. You can just look at Kyle Pitts and be like, well, he's the best player on the field.
Yeah.
So you don't have to know a damn thing about football and just can tell that by Kyle Pitts. And I just think this guy is going to be a tight end that's going in the top 10, and I think out of guys like Trevor Lawrence, who I think is just a surefire pick, I think Pitts is number 2 for me. You're not going to mess with it. He will be playing, barring an injury. He'll be on the field every single down. Can block, can catch everything. He's athletic. He's huge. He does it all. It doesn't matter. He fits all the checkbox. And Yeah, like it'd be nice to have someone sick on defense, but here and there, it's hard to find reliable guys that can just produce and just be dirty for your offense. I'm gonna be a Pitts. Go Pitts.
Yeah, I'm gonna join you on the Pitts train as well for a lot of the reasons you said. You just can't watch a Florida game without seeing Pitts light it up. He's almost more of a receiver for
Mm-hmm.
Florida than a tight end. It's just he's insane. That's all that really needs to be said. Let's move on to the next one. This is a defensive one. We're gonna get into a few defensive ones here. Gregory Rousseau or Quiddy Paye.
Man, this is interesting. You know, Gregory so set out this year, so like I haven't seen much film. Seen what I've seen a year ago, and people were like comparing him to Calais Campbell, but I kind of like Quiddy Paye a little more. I think
Mm,
I could see like some bust potential with Gregory Rousseau, but I think Quiddy Paye has like a sure lock where he has really good bend, and I think he would. It's more of the surefire pick. Like, if you want to be safe and just get a guy that can produce, like, I think Gregory Rousseau could have more, like, upside potential. But, from a guy that's seen DNs just bust every year, I'm tired of that. So I kind of just want to take the guy that I know will be playing on my team and be productive for, like, 5+ years.
yeah, I'm gonna actually take Rousseau here mainly for that upside. I just really like what I've seen out of Rousseau. Um, I just think that at the end of the day, if I'm a team picking higher in the draft, I want to be able to get an absolute stud, and I just think that Rousseau has a better chance of being a stud than Paye. So let's go into the other defensive one. Patrick Surtain or Caleb Farley. I will also throw J.C. Horn into this one if you really like J.C. Horn.
Um, yeah, I love JC, but I don't think he's better than those two guys. I'm gonna go Farley. I seen Farley's like pretty much like him and Sertain will go bounce around as the number one corner, but I think Farley is a guy who he just checks everything on the box for me. If I'm looking at corner, he's big, physical, and he's very athletic. He's fast. I read an article on him a couple days ago where he was clocking in around like a high 4.3, low 4.4 40. So I'm seeing that, and I mean, Sertain just seems like he's a lock too. Like this is a really good corner class, but I kind of like Caleb Farley's game. Like I've seen a couple of his tapes, and it just seems like he has an act to like make a play on the ball. And I'm gonna be with the mock drafters with Farley at one.
Yeah, I'm just gonna take Sertan. I haven't really watched much of Farley yet, which is part of the reason I'm taking Sertan. It's just whenever I watch an Alabama defense, whoever Sertan is guarding just
Doesn't do
gets
crap.
eliminated. They just
Yeah.
get eliminated. And yeah, we've seen Alabama corners bust in the past. I just think that Sertan is different. He's been at this level for multiple years now. So I'm just gonna kind of take the guy I think is a little bit more surefire. I understand that a whole lot of people like Farley more. I need to dive into Farley, but as of right now, it's Sertan for me. The guy is just a stud.
And
Let's
that
get
being
into
said
the
about like real quick on J.C. Horn, it's just uh, listen, when he was at South Carolina, it's a good thing when you're not targeted a lot because he was not targeted a lot. I would say one of his downside effect is probably why he plays DB. Like I've seen him drop a couple picks here and there, so maybe his hands are not the best, but he gives me kind of just like that vibe that's just a lockdown corner and just kind of a quiet guy, but maybe not as exciting as the other two.
Yeah, I think you and me both have J.C. Horn a whole lot closer to these top two guys than the consensus does.
Yeah.
Um, I agree with you. J.C. Horn is an absolute stud. Let's get into the running backs though. Najee Harris versus Etienne, and I'm gonna also throw in Javante Williams because I'm gonna take this one and say I like Javante Williams the most. I ever since I laid eyes on that UNC tape, I've just been like, wow, this guy is an absolute bowling ball of a running back. This guy is an absolute beast. I really don't see many glaring weaknesses in his game compared to many other running back prospects that I've graded before. And just a real quick anecdote that I really like about Javante Williams is I remember watching First Take, I think it was way back in the day, and there was Ryan Clark on the screen who was a Steeler, and he was saying that when Trent Richardson was coming out, that the Browns took Trent Richardson. He called up Coach Tomlin. He was like, "Oh shit, what are we gonna do? They got Trent Richardson. Trent Richardson's an absolute stud." And Coach Tomlin was like, "Well, we don't really care about Trent Richardson." He was more scared of Justin Blackman at the time. And Ryan Clark was like, "Dude, what are you, crazy? Why are you not scared of Trent Richardson? Did you not see what he just did at Bama?" And Tomlin said something that kind of stuck with me. And he's like, "Well, we can tackle Trent Richardson 25 times. I'm not worried about that. Who's going to guard Justin Blackman?" And
yeah, that's a good point.
When I think about Javante Williams, it's like he is the definition of a running back you do not want to tackle 25 times. This guy is tough to bring down. He has the highest forced missed tackle rate of all the running backs that I have tracked at 0.53 forced missed tackles per touch, and I think 0.56 forced missed tackles per run. You hand him the ball, every 2 carries he's breaking a tackle. He's just an absolute beast. Najee would be my second, though.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go Najee here. I'm with you on Javante Williams, though, and solely because of you hyping him up so much. And I see it, too. Like, I mean, I've watched plenty of North Carolina games where you can tell Javante Williams got it. Like, if a running back can make people miss and break tackles and gain a couple extra yards, I'm all down. But I think the reason why I'm going to go Najee, and maybe I'm falling into the little Bama love, like making everybody just look so good because that's what they do. But I mean, I do love his game. I think he has a role in the NFL. I think people are kind of just getting this whole maybe he's like a next Derrick Henry kind of vibe from him. I don't really see that. But I think he's a good back, and I would take him 1 just because I don't know. Javante Williams probably has more upside, honestly. But I'm just going to roll Najee. Just going to be Najee.
Yeah, I like both of these running backs. And one thing that you probably won't hear from a whole lot of other people when you compare these running backs to each other is that with Najee Harris, Javante Williams, and Michael Carter, I know that these 3 guys are just about it. Like they're the kind of guys that on any football team, they're going to be one of the hardest working dudes. They're going to be one of those guys that just don't give up on plays. And they're going to be one of these guys that just really plays to the whistle, right? I have countless examples of, for Najee Harris, for example, I was watching some Mac Jones earlier. Mac Jones, there's a ball tipped in the air and picked off. What game was it? Maybe, I think it was the Texas A&M game. And Najee Harris chases down a linebacker from 15, 20 yards away to save a pick 6, right? And you just can't teach that kind of hustle. Same thing with Javante Williams and Michael Carter. When they led block for each other, I saw a different level of intensity from these guys compared to any of the other running backs that I had watched. And I've watched probably 13 or 14 of the running backs this year. When you see, let's say, Khalil Herbert, for example, lead block, you just see a different type of energy from Michael Carter and Javante Williams when they're lead blocking for one another. And you can't teach that, right? That kind of hustle, that grit, that determination. So I think that Javante Williams and Najee Harris are both prime for success with their work ethic, their determination, their, the team over myself type of mentality. But let's get into the next one. It's Rashad Bateman versus Jalen Waddle versus Rondale Moore, another 3-peater. I'm going to start this one off because I am absolutely in love with Rondale Moore. I have had him circled on my board for the past 2 seasons now. Rondale Moore, I think, is legit. I think he's the complete package of what I would want in a receiver. He's a guy that plays hard. He's a guy who is absolutely electric with the football in his hands. He's physical. He's tough to cover. He's got really good feet. He's got a great change of direction. And I think the one thing that is a knock on him right now is his lack of threatening teams vertically in the passing game, which My rebuttal to that is, well, did they ever throw him the ball vertically? I'm watching
Mm-hmm.
these damn Purdue games, and I'm like, well, this is probably the worst offense I've seen in a while.
Yeah, it's
And
Purdue.
I feel like they completely misused Rondale Moore's skill set, especially vertically. So it's almost like these people. The two negatives I've seen is, oh, he looks slower after his injury, which I don't see. I don't think that's right. And, oh, well, he's not a threat vertical. Well, they didn't ask him to be. So, I mean, how am I supposed to say that it's a negative if a guy's not a threat vertical when they never ran him vertically?
Yeah.
Um, so I'm going Rondale Moore. I'm not sure it's even close. I have him in a tier of his own, below Chase and Smith, but above Bateman and Waddle.
Yeah, I'm going Rondale Moore with you, mainly for the same reasons. I guess I'll just kind of hit why not Jalen Waddle, because I think a lot of people would just think, Waddle is going to be the third receiver off the board after Chase and Smith. And listen, I just see that Jalen Waddle have bust written all over it. I think he's a really good athlete, of course, and he's got some great speed, but from what I see, I'm not really in love with his game too much. And I think Rondale Moore is more of a sure thing. And you got to look at two offenses here. Like you said, Purdue. And watching all those Purdue clips, it's not that fun, but you can obviously tell Rondale Moore gets it. And Jalen Waddle, I mean, how hard is it just to run a streak when you got, 10 other guys that could go first round with you? So I'm just not high on Jalen Waddle, but I think Rondale Moore is easily taken somewhere in the first round. Would not shock me. Bateman, I really haven't done too much on Bateman, but I would love to see Rondale Moore kind of shock people and be the third guy off the board.
Yeah, so real quick to touch on Bateman, because I know there's a lot of people that really like Bateman. I have Bateman as my wide receiver 4 currently. Bateman, I do see. I initially wasn't high on him. If you watch the Dynasty podcast, I called him the bait. I did a deep dive, and I actually do really like him. You talk about a guy that has elite level separation. The way that he's able to attack a defender's leverage coming off the line of scrimmage, you fall in love with it. There are some red flags with Bateman. I think his hands are a big one. And I know that people have said, and I will reiterate, that you can teach hands, right? Your hands can improve. We've seen it before with DeAndre Hopkins, Devonta Adams. When you enter the league, and even as you're in the league, you can improve your hands. You can improve your catching ability. But I'm still not going to come out here and act like dropping the football is not a red flag, right?
Yeah.
You can't be like, you see a guy drop a football in a tight window and be like, oh, well, he can get better. I mean, yeah, he can, but he also might not, right? So
Yeah, it's a risk.
that's a red flag for.
That was a little bit of a knock on DK too. I'm pretty sure when he was coming out, he would drop passes, and we've seen it in the NFL. But at the end of the day, I think DK has been a very, very good second round pick. But
well, yeah,
you're right.
DK is not the guy to talk about with me, because I was in love with DK coming into that draft. I have him as my wide receiver 2 behind Marquise Hollywood Brown.
Nah, AJ
DK
Brown's my favorite.
I never understood DK. Just a quick side note. I have very rarely seen someone have an unbelievable combine hurt their draft stock. I've never seen it. The only thing that
what was he did bad at the shuttle run, right? Or what was it?
He did bad at the 3
3-cone.
cone. You had all these data. I used to love data analytics, right? I used to be one of the guys that was really into it. But that was the draft that turned me off, because I love DK's tape, and I had this army of people mostly in the r/Dynasty subreddit, just being like, "Ooh, well, he ran a 7.38 instead of a 7.28 max. Oh, his chance of being a wide receiver 1 has now dropped dramatically." Like, are you fucking kidding me? Seriously, this tenth of a second is going to disregard all this body of work that he's done, on top of the fact that he completely killed the rest of the combine.
Yeah. I just think it's always funny that his 3-cone was in the same level as Tom Brady. Whenever Brady was doing his combine.
Like for me, I think the difference between me and a whole lot of other people is that they will use data analytics first and then the film to order everyone outside of that. I do it the opposite way. Like I rank everyone by film, and if I'm stuck, then I'll use the data analytics to like separate them. But let's do the last one. I think this is going to be a quick one because I think I know both of our answers, and that's Rashawn Slater versus Penne Sewell. I'm taking Penne Sewell. The guy has just been an absolute force. I don't think that I buy the narrative that Rashawn Slater is going to go before him. To be honest, I think that Penne Sewell is just better.
Yeah, no, I just think he's locking as the number one tackle. I think Rashawn Slater is very good. Don't get me wrong, but if the Bengals there at 5, they're definitely taking Sewell.